Welcome to part 5 of SQL video series. I'm Ganesh. In our previous video, we have discussed about how to perform various database operations like creating a database, modifying it, selecting it, and finally dropping the database. And in this video, we are going to discuss about how to create a table. As I said before, table is a collection of rows and columns, which means a table can store the information in the form of rows and columns. Let's create this employee table which we discussed in our previous video. This is the minimum syntax which is required for creating a table. Remember, this is just a minimum syntax and not the final one. There are other elements which can be further added to the syntax, which we will be discussing in a separate video. Let's understand the syntax. Create table, table name. We need to give our desired table name. Then comes the column list and the data types of the columns. We can have any number of columns in a table. If we follow the syntax, we can write in this way. Create table, table name. Our table name should be employee. Open the brackets. Next is column 1 data type. I want my first column as name of data type varchar, which should store a maximum of 10 characters. So I give 10 to it. A data type tells what kind of data can be stored on a field. Data types are classified majorly into 3. They are string data type, numeric data type, and datetime data type. In addition to this, there are other data types which we'll be discussing as and when required. Using string data type, we can store alphabets, numbers, and special characters. Whereas numeric data type can store only numbers, like numbers, decimals, floats, etc. And finally, datetime can store date or time related informations. So in this example, I want the name field to store all the text related informations, that is alphabets, numerics, and special characters. Varchar is a string data type and we are explicitly mentioning it should store to a maximum of 10 characters. That's all about this name field. Let's move on to the next field, ID. I want ID also to be of a varchar of 10 characters. So I write like this. Next one is age. In the age field, I want to store integer values. So I use the int keyword to declare it. As how we declare the size for the string data types, we don't need to perform that for integer data types. A point to note is, varchar can store a maximum of 8000 characters, whereas integer can store a maximum of 10 digits. Finally, let's create the gender type field. Gender type. I want this as varchar data type of size 10. So far we followed the syntax and wrote a query for creating a table. Let me change this from master to iShell database so that I can execute my queries on iShell database. Selecting this query, executing it, commands completed successfully. Let's expand this database, expanding iShell, further expanding tables. Here it is, dbo.employee. So this is the one we have created. dbo is nothing but a schema name. SQL Server by default created the employee table against the schema dbo, which means this employee table belongs to schema dbo. In other words, dbo has owned the employee table. If we expand this, there is a node called users. And if we further expand it, we can see a user called dbo. In general, for any schema, there will be a user with same name exist in the database. This dbo schema or dbo user ID, they are all provided by SQL Server. Right clicking this dbo and going to its properties. It is specified as username dbo and user type Windows user. Login name, my laptop name is mentioned in login name. And default schema is mentioned as dbo. You might get some clue now. At the very beginning, while we connect to SQL Server database, we give Windows authentication. That is based on this user type Windows user. SQL Server has mapped our login name to the user ID dbo by default. Since default schema is mentioned as dbo, when we create the table without mentioning the schema name, by default the table is created under the schema dbo. In short, a schema can hold collection of objects. Objects are nothing but tables, stored procedures, views, etc. And for all those objects, DBO will act as the owner. This is all about schema. Let's expand and see the created employee table. Expanding columns. We can clearly see all the fields which we have created are displayed over here. Name, ID, age, gender type, everything is created. The left out part is how to populate the data and how to retrieve the data from this employee table, which we will be covering in our next video. If you find this video useful, I suggest you to share this with your friends and colleagues. Closing it for now. Thank you.